Right now. At this exact moment. Over 2 billion people on this planet do not have access to clean drinking water. That is 1 in 4 human beings. Struggling to find the one thing every living creature needs to survive. But here is what nobody is telling you. It is about to get much worse. And when it does, countries will not negotiate. They will not sanction each other. They will not hold emergency summits. This is not science fiction. This is not a distant threat. The water wars have already begun. And the world is completely unprepared for what is coming. Welcome back to my channel. The channel that breaks down the hidden forces shaping our world. Today we are going to talk about something that affects every single country on Earth. Something more powerful than nuclear weapons. More valuable than oil. And more dangerous than any army. Water. Specifically, the coming global crisis over fresh water. And why the world's most powerful military strategists, intelligence agencies, and government leaders are quietly preparing for wars that will make the conflicts of the 20th century look small. Here is what we will cover today. First, why fresh water is running out faster than anyone expected. Second, the specific regions already on the edge of water conflict. Third, the countries most likely to go to war over water in the next 20 years. And finally, what this means for the global economy, global power, and your daily life. Stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you will never look at a glass of water the same way again. Let us start with a simple fact. 71% of the Earth's surface is covered in water. So how can we possibly be running out? Here is the truth. Of all the water on Earth, only 2.5% is fresh water. And of that 2.5%, nearly 70% is locked in glaciers and ice caps. Which means, less than 1% of all water on Earth is actually accessible for human use. 1%. For 8 billion people. For agriculture that feeds the world. For industries that power the global economy. For cities growing faster than ever in history. Now here is where it gets dangerous. That 1% is disappearing. Underground water reserves, called aquifers, took millions of years to fill. We are emptying them in decades. In India, the largest underground water reserve in Asia is being drained 8 times faster than rain can refill it. In the United States, the Ogallala Aquifer, which supplies water to 30% of American agricultural groundwater, is being depleted at a rate that scientists say is now irreversible. In the Middle East, some countries have already lost 80% of their natural water sources. And climate change is making everything worse. Droughts are lasting longer. Rainfall patterns are shifting. Rivers that entire civilizations were built around are shrinking every year. Droughts are lasting longer. Rainfall patterns are shifting. Rivers that entire civilizations were built around are shrinking every year. The Colorado River in America. The Yellow River in China. The Indus River between India and Pakistan. The Nile, the river that built human civilization itself. All of them shrinking. All of them being fought over. And the global population is not shrinking. It is growing. By 2050, the world will need 56% more water than it has today. Let that number sit with you. 56% more water. From a supply that is already running out. This is not a crisis coming. This is a crisis that is already here. The mainstream media rarely connects the dots between water and conflict. But military analysts have been warning about this for 30 years. And when you look closely at the world's most dangerous conflict zones, water is almost always at the center. Let us look at the evidence. The Nile River is the longest river in the world. It runs through 11 countries. But for thousands of years, Egypt has treated it as their river. And for a long time, they had the power to back that claim. Then Ethiopia changed everything. In 2011, Ethiopia began construction of the *** Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam ***, the largest hydroelectric dam in Africa. When complete, this dam would give Ethiopia the power to control how much water flows down the Nile into Sudan and Egypt. Egypt's response was not diplomatic. Egyptian officials were caught on a secretly recorded video discussing military options to destroy the dam. Egypt's president warned openly that if Ethiopia threatens Egypt's water supply, all options are on the table. All options. From the president of a nation with one of the largest militaries in Africa. About water. This is not metaphor. This is a nuclear-armed neighbor threatening war over a river. And as of today, this conflict remains unresolved. India and Pakistan have fought 3 major wars since 1947. Most people think those wars were about religion or territory. But water has always been underneath every conflict. The Indus River system feeds ** 90% of Pakistan's agriculture ** 90%. If that water stops, Pakistan starves. For decades, the ** Indus Waters Treaty ** of 1960 managed the sharing of this water. It survived wars, nuclear standoffs, and decades of hatred. But in 2023, India announced it was suspending the treaty. Pakistan called it an act of war. Think about that. A water treaty suspension called an act of war. Between two nuclear-armed countries that already hate each other. Over a river that one country needs to survive. This is not a small diplomatic disagreement. This is one of the most dangerous water conflicts on the planet. And it is happening right now. But perhaps the most dangerous water story in the world involves China. And almost nobody talks about it. The Tibetan Plateau is called ** the third pole ** by scientists. It contains the largest reserve of fresh water outside the Arctic and Antarctic. And from this plateau flows the water supply for nearly ** half the world's population **. The Mekong River, feeding Southeast Asia. The Brahmaputra, feeding Bangladesh and Northeast India. The Yellow River and Yangtze, feeding China itself. The Salween, feeding Myanmar and Thailand. All of them begin in Tibet, which China controls. China has been quietly building dams on every single one of these rivers, giving Beijing the ability to control water flow into India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar. Vietnam has publicly accused China of using upstream dams to devastate the Mekong Delta. Cambodia has seen its most important lake, the Tunnel Sap, shrink dramatically. Bangladesh scientists warn that Chinese water control could dry up rivers that 160 million people depend on. China has effectively weaponized water without firing a single shot. This is what 21st century power looks like. Control the water. Control the countries downstream. The Middle East is the most water-scarce region on Earth. Countries like Yemen, Jordan, and Iraq receive less rainfall per year than almost anywhere else on the planet. Yemen, already destroyed by war, is predicted to become the ** first country to completely run out of water **. Experts predict this could happen before 2030. In Iraq, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the rivers that gave birth to the very first human civilizations, are disappearing. Iraq's government has said that by 2035, these rivers could be completely dry in some regions. The cradle of civilization. Drying up. In our lifetime. And in a region already fractured by war, poverty, and political instability. What happens when the water runs out completely? Based on the data from intelligence agencies, military analysts, and environmental scientists, these are the water conflict flashpoints most likely to explode in the next 20 years. Already covered the Indus Treaty collapse. But here is why this is the most dangerous water conflict on Earth. Both countries have nuclear weapons. Both countries have armies of over 1 million soldiers each. Both countries have a history of conventional war. And Pakistan's entire agricultural economy, which feeds 230 million people, depends on water that India now controls. When a nuclear-armed country faces national starvation, the calculation changes completely. This is why Western intelligence agencies privately rank the India-Pakistan water conflict as one of the top 5 threats to global security. We already discussed the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. But the situation is worse than most people realize. Egypt has 0 alternative water sources. The Nile is not just important to Egypt. It is everything. 95% of Egypt's population lives within a few miles of the Nile. If Ethiopia reduces the Nile flow significantly, Egyptian agriculture collapses. Egyptian cities run dry. 106 million people face thirst and famine. Egypt's military is one of the most powerful in Africa. And their government has made it clear they will use it. This conflict is not theoretical. It is a ticking clock. If you want to see the future of water wars, look at what happened to the Aral Sea. Once the 4th largest lake in the world. Soviet irrigation projects in the 1960s diverted the rivers feeding it. By 2014, the eastern basin had completely disappeared. Gone. A lake the size of Ireland. Vanished in 50 years. The communities around it collapsed. The fishing industry died. The climate changed. And the countries that share what remains of its water have been in low-level conflict ever since. Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, which control the upstream water, have fought multiple armed border conflicts with downstream Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. These conflicts killed hundreds of people. Over water. This is not the Middle East. This is not a region the world pays close attention to. But it is a preview of what happens when water disappears and countries share a border. The Mekong River feeds 70 million people across 6 countries. China sits at the top. And China has built 11 massive dams on the upper Mekong. In 2019 and 2020, during one of the worst droughts in Southeast Asian history, American researchers discovered something shocking. While downstream countries suffered record drought, China's section of the Mekong had plenty of water. Because China's dams were holding it. Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, watching their rivers dry up. While satellite data showed China holding back billions of gallons upstream. Vietnam called it water aggression. But Vietnam cannot confront China militarily. Neither can Thailand or Cambodia. China is simply too powerful. And that powerlessness, that inability to fight back, creates a dangerous pressure that will not stay contained forever. Water wars are not just about thirst. They are about food, economy, energy, and global power. Here is what the economics look like. Agriculture uses 70% of all fresh water consumed globally. When water disappears, farms collapse. When farms collapse, food prices explode globally. When food prices explode, poor countries cannot afford to feed their populations. Governments fall. Revolutions start. And refugees move. We already saw this pattern with the Arab Spring. What most people do not know. The Arab Spring was partially triggered by a global wheat shortage. Caused by drought. Caused by water scarcity. Drought in Russia and China reduced global wheat supply. Prices in Egypt, Tunisia, and Libya spiked. People who were already poor could no longer afford bread. And governments that were already weak collapsed. Water did not pull the trigger. But water loaded the gun. Now imagine that pattern. But multiplied by 10. Across multiple continents. Simultaneously. That is what water scarcity in 2035 to 2050 looks like. There is another dimension to this crisis that receives almost no attention. Water is becoming a financial commodity. Investors. Betting on the price of water. Like oil. Like gold. Some of the world's most powerful investment funds are quietly buying water rights across America, Australia, and South America. In 2020, water futures began trading on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange for the first time in history. Bill Gates has purchased hundreds of thousands of acres of American farmland. Much of it chosen for its access to water. When private corporations control water, the question becomes not just who wins the war for water, but who owns it, and who gets to sell it. To governments. To cities. To people who have no choice but to pay. Water is becoming the most valuable resource in human history. And the countries and corporations that control it will control the world. So where does this end? There are 2 possible futures. The first future asterisk. Countries continue competing for water. Conflicts escalate. Food systems collapse in vulnerable regions. Mass migration reaches levels the world has never seen. And somewhere between 2030 and 2050, the first officially declared water war begins. Footage, military conflict, refugee crises, dried landscapes. The second future asterisk. The world takes water as seriously as it takes nuclear weapons. International water treaties with real enforcement mechanisms. Massive investment in desalination technology, turning ocean water into fresh water. Water recycling systems that return 90% of used water back into supply. Agricultural technology that grows more food with less water. And a global recognition that water is not a resource to be owned, but a right to be protected. The technology exists. The solutions are known. What is missing is political will. And time. Because time is the one resource running out faster than water. Here is what we know. Fresh water is finite. Demand is growing. Supply is shrinking. Climate change is accelerating the crisis. Powerful countries are already weaponizing water. And the regions most at risk are also the regions already most unstable. The next world war will not start with a nuclear missile launch. It will not start with a surprise military attack on a naval base. It will start with a dam. Or a dried river. Or a government that tells its people, there is no more water. The wars of the 20th century were fought over land and ideology. The wars of the 21st century will be fought over something far more basic, far more essential, and far more irreplaceable: water.